Greetings to all of you and welcome. I am Samson Websi in Yaoundé with the entire production team of Political Focus. Women came into the spotlight again when the Minister of Women's Empowerment and the Family, Marie-Thérèse Abena-Ondoa, launched 2 documents whose implementation is expected to propel women in Cameroon to higher political positions. The Political Education Manual for Women in Cameroon and the National Action Plan to support women participation in decision-making in Cameroon are expected to be the mantra of women in the country as they try to assert their positions despite the odds. This initiative coming as it were barely a few months after the last presidential election in which no woman featured as candidate and in the build-up to the next National Assembly, Council and regional elections is quite timely. Yet many observers are intrigued by the fact that women in Cameroon make up more than 51% of the population but, paradoxically, have remained on the apron strings of political, economic and socio-cultural decision-making. Within the different political parties across the board, women make up the bulk of those who dance to entertain senior officials but play second fiddle when the real issues are at stake. No doubt there are a few women who have stood their own in different spheres of national life, but the number of such women remains a far cry from their full potential to turn around things to their favor. Who knows, perhaps the latest initiative may just be the necessary fillip that will propel the Cameroonian woman to her rightful place, where she will no longer be like a child, crying in the rain with no one seeing her tears in order to help. Stay tuned. You are welcome back. On the request of many of our listeners, we are rebroadcasting the program focusing on the recent launch of 2 handbooks aimed at projecting Cameroonian women to higher decision-making positions. The initiative, being championed by the Ministry of Women's Empowerment and the Family, aims to win the most seats for women during the next National Assembly, Council and regional elections. Though ambitious as the advocacy documents may appear, many Cameroonians are still asking the question, how far can women go in politics in the prevailing atmosphere in the country? And that is the question which Sam Bukuba went out to find answers to.
For a long time, there has been unequal relations between men and women in leadership roles and the political space in Cameroon. This is due to society's stereotypes and perceptions based on culture, religion, and pure masochism, says Professor Justine Difo of the platform More Women in Politics.
The society continue to see women ruling in politics, and they used to put stereotype on her, and those things doesn't encourage her to involve in politics.
There is therefore the need for women to break mindsets, fight barriers in their way, and lay claim to quotas in elective positions.
They have to fight, and they have to break those strong goals in your mind and bring you to accept and understand that in a list of 25 candidature, for example, we have to see there at least 30% of ladies and men. It's a question of equity. It's a question of democracy and representativeness. And we are sensitizing them to struggle not to leave room for men because they are also capable.
The dynamics are changing, though, in women's participation and representation in political institutions in Cameroon, as testified by the Deputy Country Representative for UN Women, Dr. Mrs. Hinda Jalal.
In terms of representation of women, we have at the General Assembly 31% of women represented. This is among the highest rates in our region, in Central and West Africa. We also have 26% of women in the Senate. This is a good achievement, a good improvement, but but it is still under our expectations and our ambition for Cameroon women and girls. This is why we at UN Women are working hand in hand with Ministry of Promotion of Women and Family to enhance women participation in the political sphere.
Promoting women's participation in politics will entail having gender-sensitive legislation, such as an enabling decree to go with the electoral code, for instance.
The electoral code is, as far as I know, one of the rare laws that we apply in Cameroon without waiting and without seeking the application decree. That is the reason why I'm sure that if we have this application decree before the upcoming elections, women will be in confidence and they will be apt, capable or motivated to involve and to engage in politics.
The overriding objective is to achieve inclusiveness in political office by the year 2035.
50-50 is the horizon. By 2035 is our vision, an inclusive society, an inclusive democracy by 2035. On the way to 50-50, we know that it may be not possible to have parity, women in number capable to go on front to realize this target. And on the way, we need only at least 30% for the election, and especially at the head of councils, because now there are only 8% at the head of councils. In this project that we are leading now with the European Union subvention, we are targeting rural area in the 7 regions of Cameroon, because we need all women to be in the train. We are not going to leave some women back. We need them, and especially those in the rural area, because on the way of decentralization, we know that local governance is the best way to take care of human being. The preoccupation is to know if there is light, there is water, there are schools.
But to achieve the 2035 benchmark, certain things must be done to push the women's agenda in politics. Once again, Professor Justine Defoe.
The first step of my life today is to bring ladies, women, in the level that they have the true conscience of their citizens and they are able to do the same thing as men are doing. In our constitution, women are equal. At school, girls and boys are equal. You can even see some results. Young girls give better results than some boys in some programs. So as far as those principles are concerned, I don't see why women should continue excluding themselves from the public sphere. There's no reason for that. The second step of my vision is that as soon as I will be realizing that girls and women are understanding, their number is really increasing. Their representation in the political space or in the decision-making spheres are really increasing. I may involve myself. As soon as I will realize that things are going better, I will be ready to involve myself in politics.
As much as the women folk have to be socialized into political ethos, they are also called upon to be go-getters of positions in an environment where they are politically disadvantaged despite having the numbers during elections. Mrs. Tilda B. is a gender activist.
The political sector is somehow harsh to the women. It's not as women-friendly as it should be. So we need to crack the nut. And to crack the nut, there is a lot to be done to get the women to come out of the shell and actually take the position, not only vote, but take the positions.
If the women keep their eye on the ball, surely they will close in on the glass ceiling, no matter how high it may appear to be at the moment.
Sam Bukuba. From every indication, women in Cameroon are quite committed to achieving their goals, whether we like it or not. One of such women is Mrs. Moma Yvonne B., a member of the platform known as Small Women in Politics. In the following telephone interview, I first wanted her to comment about the documents launched by the Minister of Women's Empowerment and the Family.
I think it's a step ahead to encourage women's participation in politics. But the civil society activist in me finds the documents wanting. I got the document this morning, but I was questioning. The context in Cameroon was not addressed. We cannot be talking about a document in 2019, a crisis that has deprived women of two regions. I think we can be adding the Adamawa and the extreme north, even the east. It has deprived a lot of women of their voting rights, and they were not taken into consideration in the plan of action. So I think the document needs to be revisited. I believe in inclusiveness. We think if you want the document to be all-inclusive, we should take into consideration women in all the other parts of Cameroon. I listened to the UN Women Country Director who said studies carried out in 8 of the 10 regions. 2 regions, a critical mass have been left out. So if they are taken into consideration with their specificities, that's when I think this document would have effectively addressed women's political participation in the country.
Let's assume that all these issues you are raising are addressed. Do you think women will be up to anything in the forthcoming elections?
I think with the debates around the presidential elections, I think they've awakened the enthusiasm in Cameroonians in general, and I don't think women will be left out in participating in elections. But the question still stays. Women, as they say, come out in their large numbers when it comes to animating political rallies. But it becomes surprising when it comes to them standing like candidates, which means there is still a hindrance to female candidacies. Feminized poverty, as they've always called it, is one of it. Some of those issues were raised by this plan of action, and I think if implemented and adjusted, then that would have gone a long way to encourage the Cameroonian woman. Legislature, too, is a hampering element in female participation. I question, why don't we have a quota prescribed for women? Why does the electoral code not outrightly prescribe a quota for female participation? Elsewhere, we've seen special constituencies of positive discrimination to bridge the gender gap in political participation. Why can we not apply such in our context?
But there are some of you women who don't agree with this idea of quotas. They prefer that there should be a level playing ground so that women can even take the majority if they are capable of doing that, instead of limiting them to a quota.
Yeah, but before we get to the level playing ground, the gap needs to be bridged. I'm not against the fact that women, being a majority of the population, can eventually have the majority seats in parliament and in the councils. But it is a process, and we should begin from where others began. Give the women the zeal first to participate and be sure that their voices will be heard. If we take statistics from past elections, I don't know whether Elecam gave us disaggregated statistics on female participation during elections. The only registrations, I'm talking as of the last presidential elections, female registration dropped, which means women are losing confidence in the electoral process, or something is wrong somewhere. All of that needs to be addressed so as to encourage women to come out in their numbers and use the critical mass that they consist. We are almost 52% of this population, and when it comes to representation, women are really not there.
You are talking about this quota. We remember that during the last parliamentary elections and even the Senate elections, Elecam was able to impose a quota on gender in the different lists. Is that not enough?
A quota is clearly spelled out in terms of percentage. When they say any list that does not have a woman present or that does not take into consideration gender, which means male, female, and all the other sociological components of the population, will be rejected. I think it's still limiting in its say. We need a prescribed gender. If the Beijing platform had agreed on 30%, the African Union is even talking of a 50-50 parity. Why can Cameroon not step it? Why can't we think that it be ascribed and it's followed up? Out of 7 in each region, I don't think 30% will be one woman. So a quota inscribed and truly respected will encourage women to participate at all other levels, being sure that what we obtain from the ballot boxes is what will come out as results.
Mrs. Muma Yvonne B. of the Civil Society Platform, More Women in Politics. To further the discussion on the issues she just raised there, Tewi Lambif has joined me in the studio with our main guest on today's program. Tewi.
Thank you, Madam Marie-Therese Abena-Ondwa, for accepting to talk to CRTV in Political Focus. We are grateful. Happy New Year.
Thank you. The same to you.
We are going to concentrate on the role of women in politics. And my first question is, what motivated your latest initiative towards having more women in elective political positions at this point in time?
Thank you very much. I do not think it is a new initiative. First of all, as a Minister of Women's Empowerment and the Family, we have the obligation to empower women, not just socially, economically. We also have the obligation to empower them politically. And we know that 2019 is an electoral year. We're going to have legislative elections, municipal elections, and regional elections, because the head of state mentioned it during the last ministerial meeting. So as the Minister of Women's Empowerment and the Family, we have to make sure that women take part in all these political activities. And the initiative is not new, because in 2012, we edited a document on the participation of women in politics. It was elaborated with the full participation of the political parties that were present on the scene in 2012. So we edited that manual, and 2012 and 2018, that makes 6 years.
That's right.
So it was only normal to update the document and to present it to the public. So it was not a new initiative. It is just an update of a document that had already been edited, and is part of our missions to make sure that women are represented in politics.
How do you intend to do this?
First of all, the document that was presented is in the 2 official languages. It was edited with the full participation of the 10 regions. Our 10 regional delegates were present when the document was revised and when we agreed upon its content. And as such, we plan to undertake a vulgarization of the document in the 10 regions and going as far low in the community as we can. So it is vulgarization, and we are going to use the regular channels, TV, radio, not just official channels. We have community radios. We are also going to use other media like women's associations, churches, mosques, and what have you. Whatever channel we have, whatever occasion we have to communicate on the manual, we will use it.
If you are just tuning in, this is Political Focus, coming to you from the national station of the CRTV in Yaoundé. We will be back after the news. Welcome back to Political Focus. Our guest today is the Minister of Women's Empowerment and the Family, Marie-Therese Abena-Ondwa, with whom we are discussing the ambitions of Cameroonian women to attain higher decision-making positions in politics. Do you have any quantitative targets that you want to achieve in terms of the number of women you want to have in the National Assembly, the number of women you want to have in the regional councils, and those you intend to have as mayors in the different councils?
Thank you for that specific question. Yes, we have a figure, a minimum. You know, from the Beijing Platform of Action of 1995, 30% representation was the target. And when we look at our different political structures, in the councils, we only have 8% of women, only 8%. And in the National Assembly, we went a little bit over the Beijing 30% because we have 31%. So what is our target? Our target is to reach at least 30% in councils, in the National Assembly, to maintain the 31%, if not reach 50%. Because it is not a dream to reach the 50%. And the head of state himself is a defendant of the parity. He said it in his manifesto for the political campaign, and he also reiterated it in his message to the nation on December 31st. So we would like to have a minimum of 30%, and why not reach 50%? It is also part of the African Union, the Agenda 2063, but we can reach it sooner if we have the will and if women are sufficiently sensitized and if they have enough support from everyone. It is the support from family, support from friends, and you know that the crucial thing is money. So they must look for fundings, and they must have the support so that they can really be candidates in all these elections, council level, legislative election, regional election. So I think we have a chance to sensitize and ask men to support the women to get into those positions, because a lot of times men would go and they would put women at a very low rank, and if you take the first 10, the woman must come at number 15, place number 15, and they will be left out. So we try to work hand in hand. And you know that we have an initiative we call a he for she, because women cannot move without the men. This is why we take them along. It starts with the little boy at home to know that the girl has the same values. They have the same opportunities to grow in society. And we count on men to support women in all these different spheres of our national life.
When we look at your targets, how realistic are they? Because we've observed that women generally play a very marginal role in our political scene. They are there maybe to animate political rallies, but when it comes to maybe leading political parties and even occupying very strategic positions from which they can skip to higher positions, they are not there.
They don't need a push. They have the numbers.
That's a scandal. They are more than 50% of the population, but they are a minority in politics. How did we reach the 31% in the last legislative elections? I think there was sensitization. And also we had the push from Elekam, because the law made it an obligation to include women in the list. And you know that some of the lists that did not have women in good position were discarded. So it is a global concern for everyone. It is not just the concern of the minister, it's the concern of the entire population, that women should not be used as animators of meetings, political rallies. No, they should be encouraged, they should be supported. If you have your sister, even your wife, and you see that she can do it, why not stand behind her and encourage her to go? So you all must work hand in hand. It is not a dream. We made it in the last elections. We can at least maintain what we obtained in the last election. Why not improve? If we encourage them, because a lot of them were afraid because of the responsibilities they have at home, taking care of the family, taking care of the children. But if we share those responsibilities and we identify their competences, because you have a lot of competent women, but they are afraid to leave the home, go and do something else.
And there are also some, maybe our cultural and traditional barriers.
Exactly. We have cultural and traditional barriers. We are also working hand in hand with the traditional authorities. And we use their wives, because you can have a lot of messages reach the chief through the wives. So we work hand in hand with the traditional rulers to break through those negative traditional practices that do not really allow the women to advance.
When you look at the situation in some regions in Cameroon, the far north, the east, the northwest, and the southwest, do you really think women in those areas, given the prevailing security situation in these regions, will be able to get involved as you intend in this year's elections?
It is very sad that our country that used to be a haven of peace has been threatened by insecurity since 2014, starting with the far north and with southwest and northwest since 2016. I'm not forgetting the East region that came from Central African Republic, and the Adamawa with the kidnapping and asking for ransom and so on. So we are very much aware of it. This is why the implication of our regional delegations, even our subdivisional delegations, is very important. And we work hand in hand with associations, different associations, so that the message can get through. We are not ignoring the fact that things are going to be difficult in those regions. But in those regions, we have a listening ear, And in the Adamawa, for instance, you had a situation where women were not allowed in a certain circle. And last year they integrated women in that circle where they were not allowed to get in, so that it is not a dream, it is a reality, but we know that it will be difficult because of insecurity. And we are hoping that we will work hand in hand so that women in those areas can be involved. I must admit, I'm repeating myself, it is not going to be easy, but this is not the reason why we should not go to those places and know that they are part of the country and that they should get involved. And you know that many of them have been forced to leave the regions. So I don't think there is any objection for them to postulate if they are not within the region. But the best to do is to get those who are within, because they know the situation very well. And we are hoping that things will improve so that they can get fully involved.
Talking about those who have moved from their regions of origin, let's take the particular case of women from the northwest and the southwest. We have quite a good number of them in the west. We have a good number in the littoral. We have some in the center and the other regions in the country. Have their problems been factored into the strategy that you want to use to achieve your goal?
We presented the manual. Now we are going to go in the field to see how we can implement it. And we are very much aware of the fact that those women should not be excluded. They are in other cities for a while. We are hoping that it will be possible for them to return to their region of origin and get involved in political activities in a very near future. So we are very much aware of it, and that it is an issue that needs to be brought to the attention of organizers of the elections to see what can be done about those who are not in their regions of origin. But we are very much aware of the situation, and the ministry is also part of the commission that was created to tackle the issue in the northwest and the southwest and other regions. So we are very much aware of it, and we hope that we'll find a solution so that those women who moved out of their regions of origins are not left out.
Madam, you are Minister of Women's Empowerment and Family, all women of Cameroon, but you also belong to a political party. Now, when you are working to get more women involved in politics, are you not suspected of taking women to your own political party? Would you support women who want to get involved from the opposition parties?
Why not? I just mentioned that this manual was updated with the input of all the political parties. What we want is competent women. And we are not forcing them to belong to my party, and they are not forcing me to belong to their party. We want competences. If a woman is competent and can deliver the goods, I will support her, no matter what political party she belongs to. We want competent women, women who can defend the cause of all women, who can contribute to the development of our country. So I do not think I will fall into that bias, because I know that few days back, some people went and stated that some political parties were excluded from the updating of this manual. It was totally wrong. Totally wrong. That information is not correct. And the 10 regions took part in the updating of this manual. Even the initial document of 2012, when things were calm, all the political parties that could have candidates for the different elections took part in the preparation of that manual.
You also know that one of the obstacles to women is their literacy rates, and particularly the girl child, that the insecurity problems have come and added on it. Do you really think that with such obstacles, solving illiteracy problems are not things that you do in 1 or 2 years? You know that in the family they prepare to send a male child to school than a girl child, and the repercussions continue in the future. So given really the literacy rate amongst women, don't you think that could be an obstacle to the attainment of your goal of having more women?
You are right. The illiteracy rate of women is quite high. But I think we have competent women from the 10 regions of Cameroon who have gone to school, who have reached a level good enough to get into politics. Now, they are of a certain age. You have to look at the future. This is why it is very sad that children from the northwest and the southwest are not allowed to go to school since 2016. We are creating generations of illiterate citizens of both sexes who will be a burden to society. In every country at war, children go to school. Cameroon seems to be the exception. I don't know why. Now, to come back to the need to educate children, we have to do it, starting from the home. We should not make a difference between a boy and a girl. And I think the message has already been delivered. In education, primary education is compulsory, and it is free in public institutions. And sensitization has gone through in education priority areas. You even have incentives. If children do not go to school because they live far or because they are hungry, you have some lunch packs that they give those children to maintain them in school. So there are activities to encourage children to be registered in school. Of course, we have a crucial problem of birth certificates. I think BINEC is now making an effort to improve the registration of birth certificates because it is a scandal. In those days, my birth certificate was established within 48 hours of birth. It is common today to find a 30-year-old, a 12-year-old without a birth certificate. And this is one of the problems that we have to solve quickly. Without a birth certificate, you cannot have a citizenship. Now, another handicap we have is the national identity card. You cannot have a national identity card if you don't have a birth certificate. So it's a vicious circle. Mm-hmm. So parents should know that once a child is delivered, that child should have a birth certificate. It is free of charge. And that birth certificate will make it possible for that child to attend primary school, to sit for the first school leaving certificate and move on, because a lot of girls are blocked. Because in the village, we know one another. So they can let her go to school, but when she has to sit for that exam, she cannot present the exam because she doesn't have a birth certificate. So we need to prepare future generations, and education is very, very important.
Now, you are the Minister of Women's Empowerment and the Family. It would appear you talk more about women empowerment. What about the family?
Yes, we empower families. We do a lot for families. We prevent conflicts in families. When families have critical issues like getting children to school, within our limits, we can give them support like holiday jobs. We do give that. We give some financial support to those who have some difficulties, but our means are not that much. And we also help families of certain children who cannot get into school. If they need to be registered in one school and they solicit us, we can write and get that child registered without too much difficulty. So we are not forgetting. And don't forget that the ministry is looking for the stability of the family. And we have this phenomenon, come and stay. You take somebody's daughter, she comes and says, she's still too beautiful and very strong. She starts having children for you, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and she becomes very ugly in your eye. And you just ask her to go. No legal documents. So we organize the celebration of weddings to stabilize the family. And during those occasions, we also establish birth certificates for those who do not have birth certificates. We are not going to impose monogamy on the husband. If the man has 2 wives, he has 2 wives, he regularizes it and he says he has polygamy. That's his option. It makes safe those children who would be on the road if the man just decides to look for a younger wife, a more beautiful one, because the other one has already given him the children, and sometimes they abandon the children. So we are not forgetting the family at all. We are looking at the family.
What about the family code?
Now, the family code is a document that is over 20 years old. And every time the question comes up, I must give an answer. The family code document is not in the ministry. The document is in the Ministry of Justice, where it is being updated, and the idea is not to have to come back to it too soon. You know, in some countries, they edited and published a family code. Within a short time, they had to come back and change it. So I think that it will come. I cannot give you the date. You know, we have the penal code. It took a while to revise it, but it came out.
Madam Minister of Women's Empowerment and the Family, we come back to the initiative to have more women in elective positions. We observed that during the last presidential elections, there was no woman. The few women who used to head political parties in the past, they are no longer heading political parties, so the number is dwindling. What future do you think women have in the political life of Cameroon?
I think the presidential election is not the only election in our nation. We have municipal elections coming, legislative elections coming, and regional elections. So we are going to use this venue to sensitize women, because there are women who can be candidates. They should come forth, have the support of the community, have the support of men in this he for she campaign, husbands, brothers, and uncles. We encourage them to come forth and be known to the public. And we'll support them, we'll encourage them to stand for those positions.
What do you say about those who say that the woman is the woman's first enemy?
I do not agree totally with that, because I think women are being used to become enemies. Should that be the case, we would really discourage them from becoming one another's enemies. They should instead walk hand in hand, stand together, and I hope that during the forthcoming election, we are not going to see women against other women. They should be together if we want to get far. If we want to have those positions, we have to work hand in hand.
Thank you, Madam, for accepting to talk to Political Focus on the CRTV. It was a pleasure.
It was also my pleasure to be with you, and I'm wishing you a Happy New Year, because you are still at the beginning of the year, and I hope that you are going to support those women who will venture to go into politics, and give them the opportunity to exchange over the media, because sometimes they don't even have enough access to the media.
That was the Minister of Women's Empowerment and the Family, Marie-Therese Abena Ondua, ending today's program, in which you heard the voices of Tewi Lambeth, Sam Bukuba and Charles Tembe. Our sound technicians were Godwin Fusi Awantu and Benjamin Bokali. Supervision was ensured by Wayne Pongam, and I have been your host, Samson Websi in Yaoundé. Thanks for listening, and goodbye till next week.